Hey designers, in this video we're going to talk about the 4 critical ingredients to design that when they come together make design super powerful and amazing. And when we don't, we often fail. And maybe we're not even doing design at all if we're not doing all 4 of these things. So buckle up, it's going to be fun. So before we actually begin, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with what I mean by design. Now, in a previous video, we explored all the different ways we use the word design, and we laid out a very simple, concrete definition of what design is. And that definition is made up of 6 key components. And we break those down and look at them, and I'll link that video above here in case you're interested in watching that. And I'd recommend that you go back and watch it just to get the full picture. But we'll explore actually a summary of this definition right now. Design is a distinct method of reasoning that brings form to solutions that solve specific but ambiguous problems. So as designers, we are constantly reasoning. We're constantly creating solutions to try to solve these problems. We are often solution focused in the way that we actually solve these problems. And so we bring form and bring function to a lot of these different types of solutions, a lot of these concepts that we're exploring, so we can evaluate how well they work and how well they fit. And we bring form to these solutions through various kinds of activities. I want to suggest that maybe there's 2 types of activities that break down into 4 different elements. And so we're going to explore these 2 types of activities now. These are going to be the 2 buckets, 2 categories that we think of in the kinds of activities that we do in design. So what are these 2 types of activities? What are the 2 buckets or the categories of activities we do in design? Well, the first one is very analysis driven. It's very critique heavy. It's very thinking and cognitive. The other side is very creationary, very forming, very modeling. It's a way that we can actually create things so we have the ability then to analyze them and interact with them. These are the 2 main buckets. And so when you think about design from a very, very simple perspective. And we explored this in another previous video where I looked at a very simple design process that was based on this kind of thinking. Now, when we think of design, we think of these 2 categories. You only have design then when they both come together. If you have a creation activity and lots of creation activities, but you don't do the analysis work, you actually don't have design. Or when you're doing only lots of analysis work and none of the creationary work, you don't have design. It's only when these 2 types of activities come together that you get the power of design, which is the ability to create unique and new and different and amazing solutions, and then begin to evaluate, well, how well do they actually work? How well do they fit with the problem we're trying to solve? So think of design as the overlap or the intersection of these 2 types of activities, these 2 categories of activities that we'll be exploring today. So what's great about these 2 is that you actually have analysis and you have creation. And so it's a simple, easy to understand framework for any person, whether designer or not, to actually participate in the design activities. So am I actually helping you analyze or am I helping you create? Or as I join this project, am I going to start with some creationary work or some analysis work? And different problems kind of suggest different paths forward. And that's okay. That's part of what design is. And so when we look at this, it actually creates a very clear framework to help anyone engage with design work that you're doing or for you to participate in someone else's design work. So we have analysis and we have creation. These 2 things come together to form design. And before I go any further, before we start breaking these down into the 4 key elements or the 4 ingredients of design, I want to make sure that you don't hear or don't see something that doesn't exist. This is not a path. This is not a 1, 2, 3, 4 step. You don't move from element 1 to element 2 to element 3 to element 4. What you're actually doing is trying to balance all 4 of these things at once. And so oftentimes you'll sort of move into the 3rd element and move into the 1st element and then back to the 4th, into the 2nd, and then back to the 4th, into the 1st, into the 2nd. It's sort of a balance. So as you're bringing form to these solutions, you're doing the creationary work and you're doing the analysis work, naturally, one of these 4 elements is probably going to need a little more definition, a little more exploration, a little more depth. And so that is okay, and that's actually sort of the way it works. So design can actually feel very, very chaotic. But the benefit of a simple framework with these 4 elements is that no matter where you are in the process of solving this problem, you always have at least 3 other ways you can go or what kind of area might actually need to spend a little more time, a little more depth, get some more understanding, some more exploration, and actually generate the kind of results that we actually need to be successful in our design work. So as we think of design being the overlap of analysis and creation, we're actually going to start looking at some of the analysis side. And so these 4 elements actually break down. There's going to be 2 elements on the analysis side and 2 elements on the creation side. We're going to start on the analysis side, not because that's where every designer needs to begin or even the first step in the process, but just because we got to start somewhere. So analysis. Analysis is very cognitive. It's very in our minds. It's something that we think about. These are abstract things. And as I've mentioned before in previous videos, design actually bridges the abstract and the mental landscape with the physical and the real world. And so design is half sort of cognitive. And so the first element within this analysis side is actually the problem or the goal or what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm just going to call this the problem space. So we have a problem that we're trying to solve. It might be manifested in a goal. We might be trying to achieve a certain kind of revenue, or we might be trying to solve some sort of problem, or we might have an objective as a team that we need to accomplish. One way or the other, we're all shooting to resolve and to accomplish something together. And this really is a problem. There's some need that needs to be met, and then there is the solution that's going to happen over in the other space, in the creationary space. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about the problem, trying to have a solid definition of what we're doing and where we're going. So that is the first element of design, is a very clear set of problems. You're gonna say, John, that's nothing new. Every design process in the world says we need a problem. Yeah, that means they're good, they're right, and that fits with the rest of the world. But I wanna suggest that maybe we can get a little more clear with what we mean by a problem. Maybe in our analysis side, there's a second element that actually helps define what we're trying to accomplish, separated with another key area. And that brings us then to the second element of design. And again, both of these are under the analysis side. Both of these live in the analysis sort of cognitive area. And so we have the first area, which is all about the problem, the goal, the objective we're trying to accomplish. And the second element of design is actually the domain knowledge, or the context that our solution is going to live within. So no matter what kind of solution we're creating, it has to live, it has to have form. And we do that over here on the creation side, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. And so one of the things that we can do is understand the knowledge of the domain that our solution is going to live in, or the knowledge and domain that our problem exists within. See, every problem exists within sort of a context. And as we understand how we can solve for that, we need to understand the medium or the media or the physical attributes of whatever we're going to be bringing form to. What are the software limitations? What are the material limitations? Or what are the environmental impacts? So as we think about the people that our solution and problem exists within, as we think about the world that we live in, we have to understand the domain that we're working within. And this is really what I like to call the domain knowledge. And so this is deep. This is why we have so many specializations in design. You can think of the many, many different industries where we have designers who have just gobs and gobs of domain knowledge, whether you're interior design or engineering design, UX design, industrial, or whatever it might be. There's so many different domains that we actually solve problems within and create solutions within. Domain knowledge then gives you an adequate ability to analyze the feasibility of your design, the success of your design, and the space that your design lives within, and it will really help you to be more concrete in your understanding of what actually is good and what actually fits with the solution. There's the analysis side. We've got a problem or goal, and we have our domain knowledge. Design is the fusion of both analysis and creation. Let's explore the other half of design, which is the creationary side. As we look at the creationary side, it's pretty self-evident that designers actually create solutions, and that's awesome. But designers also need to be analyzing, and so we can't just be analytical, we also have to be creationary. It's the fusion of these two that actually makes design a very unique and powerful discipline. And so over on the creationary side, we are bringing form to solutions. We are creating multiple different options. We're making decisions and we're moving forward. And this creationary side actually breaks into 2 elements under the category of creation. So the third element of design that I want to look at is actually creativity. So before I go any further, This word creative and creativity is super ambiguous in our world today. It's used from everything from calling people creative to calling people creative leaders to calling what we produce something that is creative. So when I'm talking about creativity, I'm talking specifically about the ability as an individual, as a person, to see the different elements that are at play, to be able to break them apart, to recognize the components of a solution or the components of the domain that we're existing in, and to take those elements, those little individual pieces, almost like Legos, and combine them, take them apart, recombine them, remix them, add some, and remove some. It's the ability of a person to see what's in front of them and begin to explore different possible combinations of them, and to put them then together in unique ways, in new ways, in unexpected ways, and in ways that begin to generate and prompt different kinds of thinking. That is what I mean by creativity. And this is definitely a skill that some people are born inherently and have a higher degree of, but it's also something that can be fostered. It's something that can be grown over time. And so creativity then is our third area. And so as a designer, you come into the situation, and without creativity, you're actually not really doing justice to the problem. You may just be mimicking something you saw before. And so where the real power of design comes in is the ability of someone to come in and to do something wildly different with the elements that are at play. Wildly different with something that anyone has seen before. Sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it's not, and that's okay. It's the ability then for us to come in and create multiple different options, which is critical in design. And if you're not doing multiple different options, you're not doing design, because design demands exploration. You see, without multiple different options, without different possible solutions or concepts or ideas of how to solve the problem, you can't really do the analytical work of what actually makes a solution fit, what actually makes something work well. These kinds of things are very necessary for designers to come in and to actually do the difficult, hard work of exploring lots of different options. But creativity that's left unchecked, though, can actually be very chaotic and almost dangerous. And so that leads us to the fourth, final element of design. And that fourth element is synthesis. It's the ability then to make decisions. It's the ability to slice unnecessary parts off. It's the ability to make confident, competent decisions and then move forward with intention. And so designers don't only, in this creationary space, create lots of different options, they also hone and refine and boil down and synthesize the most optimal paths forward. So a designer then comes in and creates confident decisions. They make confident decisions and move forward with intention. You know, Leonardo da Vinci says it this way. He says, simplicity is the highest form of sophistication. And he's not wrong. Part of the elegance of a good design is a simplicity of cutting the unnecessary pieces off and cutting the unnecessary parts off. This is the work where a designer will come in and make their solutions practical. Human beings like to be able to understand the things that are in front of them. And so a good set of synthesis work is actually going to make the solution more approachable, more understandable, and generally more appealing to human beings that are going to be using it. It's sort of like a chef that comes in, and as they're making a sauce, they're adding ingredients and liquids, and eventually they're going to get to the point where they're reducing it down, they're boiling off the extra liquid to make that sauce even more powerful, more rich, and more delicious and pleasing to the people who are going to be consuming it. And that's just the same way with our design work. The simpler and more understandable that we can make our designs, the more enjoyable people are going to interact with them. So that's it. That's the four elements. That's what makes design sort of a secret sauce. And so when you think about your role as a designer, just consider these four elements that break down into two categories. You're always doing analytical work combined with creationary work. You're shooting for a problem, a goal, you're resolving something. You're also doing the hard work of understanding the domain that your solution and your problem exists within. You're working hard to explore many different possible options, doing lots of creating and sketching and prototyping. And then you're also doing the synthesis work to boil down and simplify and make practical solutions that everyone works. And this is not a process. This is not 1, 2, 3, 4. What we are talking about is that a designer actually comes into a situation and has to balance all four of these things. And they're going to use any four of these methods, any four of these kinds of elements at any given time during their design. And that's okay. That's all right. We don't always have to have a 1, 2, 3, 4 process. And in fact, design doesn't even work that way. The more you understand the solutions that you're creating and how they fit with the problem, you're going to find gaps in knowledges, and you're going to find areas where, you know what, I haven't done enough synthesis work. This is still too robust of a solution. This is still too confusing for people. There's too much cognitive weight. Or maybe over here, you know what, we've got these solutions. I don't really understand why one of them is working and one is not. Let's look maybe at our problem space. Or perhaps you have 1 or 2 options and they're just not working. That means you need to do a little more creative work. Or perhaps you've got lots of different options, you've done the synthesis work and it's simple, but you're landing over here and it's just not practical. We can't actually build it. We can't actually create that thing. Well, okay, there's some more domain understanding that you need to have. So this is a very, very powerful framework for understanding any situation that you're going to interact with design in. And so I hope this definition, I hope these 4 elements have been helpful for you today. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. It's great feedback for me, lets me know whether or not this content is helpful for people, whether they like it or whether they don't. It gives me an idea of where to keep going with this channel as I seek to help everyone grow their design and creative abilities. And if you want to continue getting more content like this and you want to grow your creativity and your design capabilities, hit that subscribe button to get notified as soon as the latest videos come out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Designers, I love helping anyone understand what I've learned over the course of the years as a designer and a design manager. Thank you for your support. Go make something awesome.